Hi, I'm Sarah Chin, and this is the story of how I learned a painful truth. Sometimes, the people you trust the most, your own family, can become your biggest enemies, especially in business. It all started more than 10 years ago, when our family's business was just a tiny computer repair shop in a rundown strip mall. My dad had started it long ago. It wasn't fancy, it barely paid the bills, but it was his pride and joy. He used to say it was his legacy. I believed him. Growing up, it was always clear who the favorite was, my older sister, Emma. She was smart, polished, confident, the kind of daughter who always brought home straight A's, won awards, and went off to a top business school. Meanwhile, I stayed home, working in the shop with Dad while studying computer science at the local college. Emma would visit during holidays and always look at me with a mix of concern and superiority. "Sarah, you're wasting your potential here," she'd say, brushing her hair behind her ear like she was in a commercial. "You could be doing something bigger, better." But I believed in that little shop. I saw something no one else did. While Emma was learning about business theories in school, I was learning hands-on skills, real programming, real clients, and real gaps in the market. I saw what our customers needed, what they complained about, and where we could step in to offer something better. During my final year of college, I built a small software tool to help local shops manage their inventory. Nothing fancy, just simple, clean, and easy to use. I showed it to Dad. At first, he shrugged, but when we made our first sale, his face lit up. "Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo," he said with a grin. For the first time, I felt like I had done something he could be proud of. So I kept going. I poured everything into the business. Long nights, early mornings, missed birthdays and skipped vacations. I watched that little shop grow into something real. By the time I was 28, we had moved into a bigger office, hired staff, and even signed a few national clients. I didn't do it for glory. I did it because I loved building something from nothing. Then, 5 years later, when we hit our first million in revenue, Emma suddenly came back into the picture. She left her big job in New York and said she wanted to be part of the family business again. "I think it's time I took my rightful place," she said at dinner one night, as if she had always been part of it. Dad looked thrilled. "That's wonderful, princess. We need someone with your skills." I sat there, stunned. She had never been around when we were struggling, when the server crashed, when clients threatened to leave, when I cried in my car from exhaustion. But now that things looked shiny and successful, she wanted in. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself I could share, I could work with her, so we became co-COS. She took care of PR, marketing, and investor meetings. I stayed focused on product development, engineering, and client relationships. At first, it worked, but as the years went on, things started to shift. Emma became the face of the company. She did interviews, took awards, made speeches, all using work my team and I had done. She posed for photos like a tech visionary, even though she didn't know how our software worked. And slowly, she started cutting me out of meetings and decisions. I was still working 14-hour days while she flew around the world. I still handled bugs and updates and late-night calls from clients. But inside the company, I started to feel invisible. Then came Dad's 60th birthday party. That was the day everything changed. Emma planned the whole thing. She booked the most expensive hotel ballroom in the city. It was more of a business event than a family party. Everyone important was there, clients, investors, executives. I wore a simple black dress and came early to help. As I greeted guests, Emma pulled me aside and whispered, "Couldn't you have made more of an effort? These are important people, Sarah." I bit my tongue. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted the night to go smoothly. Then, during dinner, Emma tapped her glass and stood up to speak. I thought she'd thank Dad or share a sweet memory, but instead, she made an announcement that shattered everything I had worked for. "As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday," she said, smiling at the crowd, "we also look toward the future. That's why I'm excited to announce some changes at Chin Technologies." I blinked. "Changes?" "Effective immediately," she continued. "I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for the company to embrace real leadership, fresh vision, and professional excellence." I felt the blood drain from my face. What was she saying? She turned to me, still smiling. "Sarah has been adequate in keeping our systems running," she said, with fake sympathy in her voice. "But in today's fast-moving world, we need someone with true strategic thinking, someone who knows how to grow, and unfortunately, Sarah just isn't that person. I looked at my father, waiting for him to stop her, to stand up and say it wasn't true, but he didn't. He nodded, smiling proudly. That moment broke something in me. My own father, who I had worked beside for years, was letting my sister humiliate me in front of hundreds of people. Emma wasn't done. To be blunt, she said, Sarah is outdated. Her lack of formal business training has become a liability, and in today's market, we can't afford to be sentimental. Then she said it, the word that rang in my ears all night long. Worthless. She called me worthless, in front of my colleagues, clients, and family friends. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run, but I did none of those things. I stood up, calmly, quietly. I walked over to the table where my dad sat and placed the gift I had brought, a small, wrapped box with a photo album I had made showing our company's journey. Happy birthday, Dad, I said softly. And then I walked out of the ballroom. That was the night I realized something important. Emma thought she had won. She thought she had taken everything from me, but what she didn't know was that I had one thing she didn't, the foundation. I had built that company, every line of code, every customer relationship, every innovation, and I still had something she didn't, control of the core technology and majority shares. But that part of the story, that came the next morning. Because that night, as I sat in my small home office, staring at the awards and patents on the wall, I made a decision. Emma thought I was gone. But she had no idea what was coming next. I stood up slowly, and the sound of my chair scraping against the ballroom floor was so sharp and loud it made people turn their heads. Everyone was waiting to see what I'd do. Would I cry, yell, storm out? I did none of those things. I walked over to Dad's table, opened my purse, and placed a small, wrapped gift in front of him. Happy birthday, Dad, I said softly. Then I turned around and walked out of the room with my head held high. Behind me, I could feel the whispers and the eyes watching me, but I didn't care anymore. That chapter of my life was ending, and a new one was about to begin. Later that night, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the patents, awards, and framed newspaper articles that told the story of what I had built. For a few minutes, I just sat there, remembering the sleepless nights, the first software launch, the emails from grateful clients, everything I had poured my heart into, nearly stolen from me in a single evening by people I loved. Emma thought she had won, but she had forgotten one important thing. I wasn't someone she could just push aside. I turned on my laptop and started typing. The soft click of the keyboard was the only sound in the room, and with every word, my plan came to life. By 3 a.m., I had sent emails to every major client, investor, and employee. I smiled to myself. Tomorrow would be interesting. The next morning, the sky was clear, and the air felt sharp and full of change. I arrived at the office before anyone else and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., Emma walked in with Dad beside her. Both of them looked so confident, like they had already won. Sarah, Emma raised an eyebrow. Why are you here? I thought you'd take the hint after last night. I smiled and stood up. I'm just tying up some loose ends, but since you're here, we should talk about the company's future. There's nothing to talk about, Dad said quickly. Emma is the CEO now. The board has approved it. Oh, the board, I said, taking out my tablet and turning on the big screen in the conference room. Let's talk about that. I pulled up a few important documents. You both seem to have forgotten something, I began. When we registered this company 10 years ago, Dad gave Emma and me each 25% of the shares. He kept 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, we needed funding for expansion, remember? And you, Dad, sold me 6% of your shares without even reading the paperwork. Dad blinked. Emma looked confused. That's not possible. But it is, I said calmly, which means I now own 51% of Chen Technologies. The room went silent. And that's not all, I added, pulling up more documents. The software that brings in 80% of our revenue, that's owned by a different company, my company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Chen Technologies only had a license to use it. Emma's voice turned sharp. Had? Yes, that license expired 10 minutes ago. I chose not to renew it. Dad dropped into a chair, pale and stunned. Emma gripped the table with both hands. You can't do this. Oh, I can, and I did. I walked over to my laptop and opened my email. Dozens of replies had already come in. I told all our major clients about the leadership change. Most of them signed with us because of me, because of my work, and many of them included clauses saying they could cancel if I left. I showed them the messages on the screen: clients leaving, projects being pulled. Oh, and one more thing. The top engineers and developers, the ones who built this company with me, they work for Innovate Solutions, not Chen Technologies, and last night, they all agreed to follow me. Outside the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, looking at their phones, reading the news. Emma's face turned red as she scrolled through her messages, seeing what I had done. "You betrayed us," she said in a whisper. "You've been planning this." I shook my head. "No, Emma. I spent 10 years trying to be loyal, to our family, to this company. You called me worthless. You tried to erase everything I did. I didn't plan this until last night, until you gave me no choice." Dad finally looked up. "What are you going to do now?" he asked quietly. "You have two choices," I said. "One, I walk away with my software, my team, and my clients. You're left with a company name and nothing else. Or two, you both resign. I take over. You keep your shares, but stay out of operations. Emma gets a severance package and a good reference, somewhere far away from here." No one spoke. The weight of their decisions filled the room. After an hour of silence, phone calls, and lawyers, the papers were signed. By noon, I was the sole CEO of Chen Technologies. That evening, Mom came to my office. Her eyes were tired, red from crying. "Did it have to end this way?" she asked gently. I looked at her for a long time. "They left me no other option," I said. "They would have thrown me away after everything I built." She nodded slowly, and her voice softened. "What now?" I showed her the plans I'd already started: new products, expansion ideas, partnerships. Now I build something even bigger, but this time, I do it without people who see me as disposable. Over the next year, the company soared under my leadership. We tripled our revenue. Innovate Solutions and Chen Technologies merged into one powerhouse. Emma found another job in Silicon Valley. Dad retired. We still saw each other at holidays, but it wasn't the same. There was too much left unsaid. Sometimes, late at night, I'd look at that wrapped birthday gift I never gave Dad. Inside was a photo album, a journey of the company's growth. Maybe one day I'll give it to him. Maybe. For now, I keep it as a reminder. A reminder that being underestimated doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes, it means you're the strongest one in the room, just quiet about it. I was invited to speak at Emma's old business school recently. The topic? Hidden strengths, the power of underestimated leaders. I said yes. Because I do have a story to tell. And the world is finally listening.